The Galactic Council's amphitheater buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 species settled into their bio-adaptive seats. Today's agenda? The human question. Again. Ambassador Cleth, of the Vortani Collective, adjusted his forearms nervously, his purple carapace gleaming under the artificial lights. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, "we gather today to address the ongoing concerns regarding humanity's recent application to join our military alliance." A ripple of what could generously be called laughter swept through the assembly. The Zephyrians' gas-filled bladders deflated in amusement, while the crystalline Nexari chimed their equivalent of chuckles. "Oh, this should be rich," muttered Commander Vex of the Hegemony Forces, his 6 eyes rolling in perfect synchronization. "The bipedal mammals want to play soldier with the big kids." Standing at the center of the amphitheater, completely dwarfed by the towering alien delegates, was Lieutenant Maya Torres of the Terran Defense Force. At barely 5 feet 6 inches, she looked like a child's toy among the assembled giants. Her simple olive-green uniform seemed almost quaint compared to the elaborate armor, energy fields, and biomechanical enhancements surrounding her. Maya's dark eyes swept the chamber, taking in every sneer, every dismissive gesture, every condescending smile. Her expression remained perfectly neutral, but those who knew humans well enough might have recognized the slight tension in her jaw. A warning sign, if you will. "The humans," continued Cleth, consulting his holographic notes, "claim their species possesses, and, I quote, exceptional combat capabilities suitable for Alliance membership. However, preliminary assessments indicate they lack the standard military technologies we consider, well, standard." The Corvin representative, a hulking creature that resembled a mobile mountain range, leaned forward with obvious skepticism. "Their weapons are primitive projectile systems, chemical propellants. How delightfully archaic." "Projectile weapons," scoffed the ethereal delegate, her form shimmering between dimensions. "In the age of plasma cannons and molecular disruptors. How charmingly retro." Maya cleared her throat politely. The sound, barely audible, somehow managed to cut through the growing murmur of conversation. "If I may address the council," Cleth waved one of his hands dismissively. "By all means, Lieutenant Torres. Please enlighten us about these exceptional combat capabilities." The human stepped forward, her boots clicking against the polished floor. "Thank you, Ambassador. I understand your concerns about our technology gap. It's true that humanity has yet to develop energy-based weapons or powered armor suits. We're still figuring out faster-than-light travel, and our ships are held together with what you might call aggressive optimism and spare parts." A few chuckles echoed through the chamber. "However," Maya continued, her voice gaining strength, "combat effectiveness isn't solely dependent on technology. There are other factors to consider." Commander Vex leaned back in his chair, all 6 eyes now focused on the tiny human. "Such as adaptability, creativity, stubbornness." Maya's lips curved into what might have been a smile. "And our rather unfortunate tendency to solve problems by hitting them very, very hard." The Nexari delegates' crystalline form pulsed with what their species considered amusement. "Hitting things? How wonderfully primitive! And when your opponents possess energy shields, kinetic barriers, and nano-armor." "Well," Maya said, clasping her hands behind her back, "that's where things get interesting." The chamber fell silent, waiting. "You see, esteemed delegates, humans have been fighting without advanced weapons for quite some time. Approximately 200,000 years, give or take. we've gotten creative." The Vortani ambassador's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Lieutenant Torres, while your species' history is no doubt fascinating, we require practical demonstrations of capability. Words are insufficient." Maya nodded solemnly. "I completely agree, Ambassador, which is why I've prepared a small demonstration." She reached into her utility belt and pulled out what appeared to be a simple communication device. "Computer, please activate Holographic Training Protocol 7 Alpha." The air in the center of the amphitheater shimmered, and suddenly 3 figures materialized. Each was roughly humanoid, but clearly representing different alien species. The first was tall and heavily armored, resembling the Corvan delegate. The second was sleek and fast-moving, similar to the ethereal. The third was medium-sized but bristled with what appeared to be advanced weaponry. "Standard combat androids," Maya explained conversationally. "Programmed with the combat algorithms of your 3 most formidable warrior species. They're equipped with energy shields, kinetic dampeners, and are armed with plasma rifles, molecular disruptors, and neural stunners." The delegates leaned forward with interest. This might actually be entertaining. "The question," Maya continued, beginning to remove her uniform jacket, "isn't whether humans can fight without guns." She folded the jacket neatly and set it aside, revealing a simple black tank top underneath. "The question is whether you're ready to understand how we've survived this long without them." The first android, the Corvan type, activated its energy shield and raised its plasma rifle. Its targeting systems immediately locked onto Maya, painting her with a dozen red dots. "Impressive technology," Maya observed, rolling her shoulders. "Energy shields, advanced targeting, plasma weaponry, very sophisticated." She paused, stretching her neck from side to side. "Just one tiny problem." "Which is?" demanded Commander Vex. Maya's expression shifted. The polite, respectful lieutenant vanished, replaced by something altogether more dangerous. Her stance changed subtly, weight shifting to the balls of her feet, muscles coiling with barely contained energy. "All that fancy tech requires reaction time." She moved. The delegates had expected. Well, they weren't sure what they'd expected. Perhaps some sort of crude charge, maybe a desperate attempt to dodge the inevitable energy blasts. What they definitely hadn't expected was for the human to simply vanish. One moment, Maya was standing in the center of the arena, looking small and helpless. The next moment, she was somehow inside the first android's guard, moving with a fluidity that seemed to defy several laws of physics. The Corvan-type android, programmed with millions of combat scenarios, attempted to track its target. Its advanced sensors registered the human's presence, calculated trajectory and velocity, and prepared to fire. By the time it pulled the trigger, Maya was no longer there. She had dropped low, sweeping the android's legs with a move that looked deceptively simple. As the massive construct toppled forward, she caught its weapon arm, used its own momentum against it, and somehow, the physics were genuinely confusing, managed to flip the entire android over her shoulder. The crash shook the amphitheater. "One," Maya said calmly, not even breathing hard. The second android, the ethereal type, had been tracking the engagement and immediately adapted. Its form shimmered as it prepared to phase shift, making itself temporarily intangible. The molecular disruptor in its hands began charging with an ominous whine. Maya tilted her head, studying her opponent with the casual interest of someone examining an interesting insect. "Oh, that's clever. Phase shifting. Very high-tech." She began walking toward the android, her pace unhurried. "Bet that cost a fortune to develop." The android completed its phase shift, becoming translucent and ethereal. It raised its weapon triumphantly. Maya walked straight through it. For a moment, the delegates thought she had somehow acquired the same technology. Then they realized what was actually happening. The human hadn't phased at all. She had simply timed her approach to coincide with the android's shift back to solid form. As the construct materialized around her, Maya was already in position. Her elbow struck what would have been the android's solar plexus if it had possessed one. Her other hand grabbed the molecular disruptor, twisted it away with mechanical precision, and somehow managed to use the android's own weapon to strike it in what appeared to be a critical system junction. The android collapsed in a shower of sparks. "Two," Maya announced. The third android had been learning from its companion's failures. It maintained maximum distance, activated every defensive system simultaneously, and began laying down suppressive fire with its neural stunner. The air around Maya filled with crackling energy bursts. Maya dodged, not with any advanced technology or supernatural ability, but with movements that were purely, impossibly human. She flowed between the energy blasts like water finding cracks in stone, each motion economical and precise. The android's targeting systems went haywire. How do you hit something that seems to know where you're going to shoot before you do? The funny thing about predictive algorithms, Maya called out conversationally while avoiding another barrage, is that they assume logical behavior. She bounded off a piece of fallen debris, launching herself into an aerial maneuver that would have made gymnasts weep with envy. Humans aren't always logical. She landed behind the android, having somehow covered 20 feet in a single leap. Before it could turn, she had grabbed its weapon arm and twisted. The neural stunner fired once, striking the android in its own central processor. It toppled forward and lay still. "3," Maya said, dusting off her hands. The amphitheater was dead silent. Maya retrieved her jacket and began putting it back on, her movements casual and unhurried. Energy shields work great against energy weapons. Kinetic dampeners are excellent for stopping projectiles. Advanced targeting systems can track and predict the movements of any rational opponent. She buttoned up her jacket methodically. Unfortunately, evolution didn't design humans to be rational. She turned to face the assembled delegates, her expression returning to its previous respectful neutrality. "We're persistence predators, esteemed colleagues. We're built to never stop, never give up, and never fight fair when survival is on the line." She clasped her hands behind her back once more. "Your technology is impressive, truly. But technology has weaknesses, limitations, predictable parameters." Commander Vex's 6 eyes were wide with something approaching respect. "And humans don't?" Maya's smile was sharp as a blade. "Oh, we have plenty of weaknesses. We're slow compared to most species. We're fragile. We don't have natural armor or weapons. We can't phase shift or fly or manipulate energy fields." She paused. "But we have one advantage that all your technology can't replicate. Which is, we're absolutely, completely, 100% insane." Her grin widened. "In the best possible way." The silence stretched on for several long moments. Finally, the Nexari delegate spoke, their crystalline form pulsing with uncertain colors. "Lieutenant Torres, your demonstration was illuminating. However, these were merely training androids in actual combat against real opponents with genuine combat experience." Maya's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes grew colder. "With respect, delegate, those androids were programmed with your species' actual combat algorithms. They fought exactly as your warriors would fight. They used your tactics, your strategies, your weapon preferences." She straightened slightly. Are you suggesting that your warriors would perform differently than your own programming indicated? The Nexari delegate's form flickered nervously. Well, no, but… Then, perhaps, Maya continued gently, the question isn't whether humans can fight without advanced weapons. Perhaps the question is whether the galaxy is ready for what happens when we get them. The implications of that statement settled over the amphitheater like a shroud. Ambassador Cleth cleared his throat nervously. Lieutenant Torres, while your demonstration was certainly impressive, we must consider the broader implications of human integration into our military alliance. There are protocols, procedures, centuries of established… Oh, absolutely, Maya agreed cheerfully. Protocols are important. Very important. She reached into her utility belt again. Which is why I brought backup documentation. She activated her communication device once more. Computer, please transmit the Terran Defense Force's preliminary combat assessments to all Council members. Holographic displays materialized in front of each delegate. Data streams began flowing, showing detailed analyses, statistical breakdowns, and tactical assessments. The delegates began reading, their expressions growing progressively more alarmed. These numbers, whispered the Corvin representative, his mountain range form somehow managing to look pale. These casualty ratios, these success percentages, this can't be accurate. Oh, those are just from our training exercises, Maya explained helpfully. War games between human units and simulated alien forces. We've been running them for 6 months, ever since we decided to apply for Alliance membership. She paused thoughtfully. We wanted to be prepared. Commander Vex was scrolling through data with increasing horror. According to this, human forces achieved a 97% success rate against our combined tactical doctrines. 97.4% actually, Maya corrected. We're still working on that last 2.6%. Humans hate losing, even in training. The ethereal delegate's form was shimmering with what could only be described as panic. These tactical innovations, these strategies, they're completely unprecedented. How did you develop countermeasures for weapons you've never encountered? Maya's expression grew thoughtful. Well, that's the thing about humans. We have this saying, if you want to defeat your enemy, you have to think like your enemy. So we studied your tactics, your weapons, your strategies. We analyzed everything. She smiled brightly. Then we figured out how to break them. The chamber erupted in alarmed murmuring. Representatives huddled with their advisors, pointing at data streams and gesturing frantically. Ambassador Cleth raised all 4 arms for silence. Lieutenant Torres, these assessments suggest that human forces could, theoretically, pose a significant threat to Alliance security. Only if we were enemies, Maya replied calmly. Which we're not. We're applying for membership, remember? We want to be the good guys. And if your application is denied? Maya's smile didn't waver, but something in her tone grew very, very quiet. Well, Ambassador, that would be unfortunate. The silence that followed was profound. You see, Maya continued conversationally, humans have another saying. If you can't beat them, join them. But there's a corollary to that. If they won't let you join them. She shrugged elegantly. Well, we get creative. The implications hung in the air like a sword. Commander Vex leaned forward, all 6 eyes fixed on the human. Lieutenant Torres, are you threatening the Galactic Council? Maya looked genuinely shocked. Threatening? Oh, goodness, no. That would be terribly impolite. Her expression grew earnest. I'm simply providing context. You asked whether humans could fight without advanced weapons. I've demonstrated that we can. You've seen our tactical assessments against your combined forces. You understand our capabilities. She spread her hands in a gesture that somehow managed to be both innocent and ominous. Now you get to choose whether those capabilities are used with you, or despite you. The amphitheater remained frozen in stunned silence for exactly 14 seconds. Maya knew because she counted. Humans were good at that sort of thing, measuring moments when everything balanced on a knife's edge. Then chaos erupted. "Outrageous!" bellowed the Corvan delegate, his massive form rising like a geological event. "This is extortion, blackmail. We will not be intimidated by a single primitive biped." "Primitive?" Maya raised an eyebrow, her tone taking on a deceptively casual quality. "That's interesting. Tell me, delegate, how many primitive bipeds does it usually take to completely dismantle your military doctrine?" Several delegates flinched. The data streams were still floating in front of them, those damning statistics impossible to ignore. The ethereal representative flickered between dimensions nervously. "The Council demands clarification. Are you stating that humanity intends hostile action if membership is refused?" Maya looked genuinely puzzled. "Hostile? Oh no, nothing hostile at all. Humans are very peaceful, actually. We prefer diplomacy, trade, cultural exchange, that sort of thing." She paused, examining her fingernails with studied indifference. "It's just that we have this unfortunate habit of exploring, expanding, meeting new neighbors." Commander Vex's expression grew increasingly grim. "And if those neighbors don't want to be met? Well, that's never really stopped us before." Maya's smile was bright enough to power a small star. "Humans are very social creatures. We like making friends. Sometimes we're just enthusiastic about it." Ambassador Cleth was frantically consulting with his advisors, their whispered conversations growing more animated by the minute. Finally, he turned back to Maya, his purple carapace darker with stress hormones. "Lieutenant Torres, your implications are concerning. The Galactic Council has protocols for dealing with aggressive species." "Oh, I'm sure you do," Maya nodded approvingly. "Probably very effective protocols, too. Quarantine procedures, blockade formations, maybe some sort of containment strategy?" She tilted her head thoughtfully. "How's that working out for you so far?" The question hit like a plasma bolt to the face. Because the uncomfortable truth was that humanity had already spread to 17 star systems despite the Council's observation and evaluation period, despite the restriction on advanced technology transfers, despite every diplomatic attempt to slow their expansion. Humans, it seemed, didn't require permission to be inconvenient. The Nexari delegate's crystalline form pulsed with agitated colors. "Your species was supposed to remain in your home system pending evaluation. These unauthorized expansions violate at least 12 galactic treaties." Maya looked genuinely confused. "Unauthorized? But we filed all the proper paperwork. Environmental impact assessments, colonization permits, even cultural preservation forms for the 3 systems that had interesting rock formations." She pulled out her communication device and began scrolling through files. "Would you like to see the documentation? It's all very thorough." "Those permits were never approved." Cleth's 4 arms gestured wildly. "Oh!" Maya blinked innocently. "Well, that's awkward. We sort of assumed that silence meant consent. You know, if you don't say no within a reasonable time frame. That's how humans usually handle these things." The silence that followed was deafening. "You colonized 17 star systems," Commander Vex said slowly. "Based on bureaucratic assumptions?" 16 systems, Maya corrected helpfully. The 17th was more of an accident. Navigation error. But the colonists were already there, and they'd started building homes, so it seemed rude to make them leave. The Vortani ambassador was making small, choking sounds. The point is, Maya continued cheerfully, humans are already here. We're already expanding. We're already making friends with some of your member species. She counted on her fingers. The Altarians love our music. The Centauran Collective is fascinated by our agricultural techniques. And don't get me started on how much the Rigelians enjoy human cuisine. This was news to most of the delegates, who began exchanging alarmed glances. The question, Maya said, her tone growing more serious, isn't whether you can stop us. The question is whether you want us as allies or as, well, let's call it enthusiastic neighbors. The Corvan delegate's massive form trembled with barely contained fury. Your species displays classic expansionist aggression patterns, territorial acquisition, resource exploitation, forced cultural integration. Forced? Maya sounded genuinely hurt. That's not very nice. We don't force anyone to do anything. We just offer alternatives. Such as? Maya's expression grew thoughtful. Well, for instance, the mining consortium that was strip mining Altari 7. Terrible for the local ecosystem, you understand. Very inefficient. Lots of waste. She shrugged. So we showed them some human mining techniques. Much more sustainable, better yield, significantly fewer environmental disasters. And if they had refused? Oh, they were free to refuse. Maya's smile was perfectly innocent. Of course, we'd already set up our own mining operation on the next planet over, using those same techniques, producing the same resources at about half the cost. She paused. Competition is wonderful for innovation, don't you think? The delegates were beginning to understand. This wasn't conquest in any traditional sense. This was something far more insidious and far more effective. The ethereal representative flickered nervously. Your species is economically destabilizing entire sectors. Destabilizing seems harsh, Maya objected. We prefer improving. Humans are very good at efficiency. We had to be, stuck on one planet for so long. We learned how to do more with less. Her expression grew prouder. Now we can do more with more. It's quite exciting. Commander Vex was scrolling through intelligence reports on his personal display, his 6 eyes growing wider with each data point. According to these assessments, human trade networks have achieved 60% market penetration in 7 allied sectors. 62% as of yesterday, Maya corrected helpfully. We signed an exclusive distribution deal with the Tau Ceti Manufacturing Guild. Lovely people, very forward-thinking. The amphitheater erupted into frantic discussion. Representatives huddled with their economic advisors, consulting trade statistics and market analyses that painted an increasingly alarming picture. Humans weren't conquering through military might. They were simply being aggressively helpful. Ambassador Cleth raised his arms for silence once more. Lieutenant Torres, the Council requires a formal statement of human intentions. What exactly does your species want? Maya straightened, her casual demeanor shifting into something more professional. What we've always wanted, Ambassador. A seat at the table. Recognition as a legitimate galactic civilization. Access to advanced technologies and star charts. The right to participate in interstellar commerce without arbitrary restrictions. And in exchange, partnership. Our military capabilities integrated with your strategic doctrine. Our economic innovations shared with allied worlds. Our technological developments made available to Council members. Maya paused. Basically, We want to help. The word help seemed to echo ominously through the chamber. The Nexari delegate's crystalline form pulsed with uncertain patterns. And if the Council determines that human help is incompatible with galactic stability? Maya's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Well, that would be unfortunate. For everyone. She activated her communication device once more. Computer, please display projection model 17 beta. A new holographic display materialized, showing detailed star charts of the local galactic region. Red dots marked human colonies and outposts. Blue zones indicated allied territory. Yellow areas showed trade routes and economic partnerships. The delegates stared in growing horror. Human presence wasn't limited to 17 systems. The red dots covered nearly a quarter of the displayed region. Trade networks stretched across multiple sectors. Economic partnerships linked dozens of worlds. "This is impossible," whispered the Corvin representative. "Our intelligence reports indicated limited human expansion." "Oh, your intelligence is excellent," Maya assured him. "Very thorough. You've been tracking our military vessels, monitoring our official colonies, observing our diplomatic activities." She smiled. "You just forgot about the merchants." The revelation hit like a quantum torpedo. "While you were watching our warships," Maya continued conversationally, "human traders were establishing commercial relationships across half the galaxy. While you were monitoring our official colonies, human entrepreneurs were setting up business partnerships with local governments. While you were analyzing our military capabilities, human engineers were solving infrastructure problems for anyone willing to pay." She gestured to the holographic display, where the scope of human economic penetration was becoming increasingly clear. "We didn't conquer anything. We just made ourselves useful." Commander Vex was rapidly calculating strategic implications, his expression growing more grim with each passing moment. Economic dependence, infrastructure integration, cultural infiltration. He looked up at Maya with something approaching admiration. "Your species has achieved de facto colonization without firing a single shot." "Well," Maya said modestly, "humans have always been good at problem solving. We just scaled up." The amphitheater fell into stunned silence as the full scope of humanity's peaceful expansion became clear. They hadn't been invaded. They'd been helped. Aggressively, systematically, irrevocably helped. Ambassador Cleth's voice was barely above a whisper. "What do you want from the Council, Lieutenant Torres?" Maya's expression softened slightly. "Honestly, we want to make this official. We want recognition. We want partnership." She spread her hands. "We want to stop pretending that we're not already here. And if that recognition is denied?" Maya was quiet for a long moment, considering her words carefully. "Then I suppose we'll just keep doing what we're doing. Exploring, expanding, making friends." She met Cleth's gaze directly. "With or without Council approval." The implication was clear. Humanity wasn't asking for permission. They were offering partnership. The alternative was less pleasant to consider. The Vortani ambassador cleared his throat nervously. "The Council will require time to deliberate." "Of course." Maya nodded graciously. "Take all the time you need. We're very patient." Her smile was sharp. "We've had lots of practice." She began gathering her equipment, her movements casual and unhurried. "Oh, and delegates? While you're deliberating, you might want to review the latest trade statistics from the Centauran Collective. We just helped them increase their agricultural output by 300%. She paused. I'm sure they'd be happy to share the details with anyone interested. The delegates exchanged alarmed glances. Food security was always a critical concern for spacefaring civilizations. Human agricultural techniques are quite remarkable, Maya continued chattily. Very adaptable. We can improve crop yields on almost any world, regardless of environmental conditions. She hefted her bag over her shoulder. Of course, we usually prefer to work with official partners. Government contracts, treaty arrangements, that sort of thing. Much more stable. The threat was delicately implied, but unmistakable. As Maya walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber, Ambassador Cleth called out, "Lieutenant Torres, how long do we have to consider your proposal?" Maya paused at the threshold, turning back with a thoughtful expression. "Well, Ambassador, that depends on how quickly you want to maintain control over your own economic future." She checked her chronometer. "The Rigelian Assembly is voting on exclusive trade agreements next week. The Alteran Confederation is considering infrastructure partnerships, and the Tau Ceti Manufacturing Guild is exploring joint military contracts." She smiled brightly. "I'd say you have until then." With that, Lieutenant Maya Torres of the Terran Defense Force walked out of the Galactic Council chambers, leaving behind a room full of delegates who were just beginning to understand that they hadn't been negotiating with humanity at all. They'd been negotiating with themselves. The humans, as usual, had already won. As the amphitheater doors sealed behind her, Maya activated her communication device one final time. "Control, this is Torres. Mission accomplished. They're scared, they're impressed, and they're exactly where we need them to be." The response crackled with amusement. "Copy that, Torres." "How long before they call us back?" Maya checked her chronometer again and smiled. 23 minutes. Maybe 24 if they're feeling particularly stubborn. "And if they don't?" Maya's grin widened as she headed toward the spaceport. "Then we proceed to Phase 2. The Rigelians have been asking about our defense consultation services. Seems they're concerned about potential instability in the region." The communication channel fell silent for a moment. "Torres? Yes? Remind me never to play poker with your species." Maya laughed as she boarded her transport shuttle. "Too late for that, Control. We've been playing poker with the entire galaxy since we learned to fly." "And winning?" Maya settled into her seat as the shuttle lifted off, carrying her away from the Galactic Council's homeworld. Below, she could see the lights of the capital city, where 47 species were desperately trying to figure out how to deal with the human problem. "Always," she said softly. "Humans always win. We just prefer it when everyone thinks they had a choice." 22 minutes later, Ambassador Cleth's personal communication device chimed with an urgent message from the Galactic Council emergency session. The humans had been accepted for full alliance membership. Unanimously. Maya Torres, currently enjoying a cup of coffee in her shuttle's small galley, wasn't surprised when her own communication device chimed moments later. "Welcome to the Alliance, Lieutenant Torres," came Cleth's voice, carefully neutral. "We look forward to a long and productive partnership." "Thank you, Ambassador," Maya replied graciously. "We're excited to help." And in that simple word, help, the future of the galaxy shifted forever. After all, humans were very good at helping, whether you wanted them to or not.